How long did you run Operitel before deciding to sell it to OpenText?
So we got to a point, and it's an interesting reason why we sold. So we won a very large account. And I won't talk about the name of the company, but a multinational organization. The account was about $5 million. We were about $8 million a year in revenue. Mm-hmm. We won the account, won the tender, flew over. It was a German-based company, went through all the processes. We were all ready to go, went through the contract negotiations. The contract went over to the finance department, and they said no. Okay. Simply no. They said, we will not issue a contract to a company where over 50% of this contract is more than 50% of the revenue of the company. Done. Okay. So that was it. And they went to the second choice on the list. So we came back from that, and we were obviously pretty devastated because the technology, we would easily have done a better job.
Ups and downs.
And it was like, how do we become bigger? And how do we become bigger really fast? We could acquire a company to add revenue, but we didn't have the capital to do that. And so we said, let's look for a strategic partner. And HP, Hewlett Packard, is one of our big distributors. They were the first group we reached out to. And then I met a gentleman at a party here in Peterborough that lived in Cavan, who owned a mergers and acquisition firm, which was internationally renowned. And if you look at his address, it says he's in Toronto, but he lived here in Cavan. And so we met at a party and a social event. And he told me what he did, and I sat down with him, and he basically put us onto a system to put us up for sale of either partial. At that time, we were just looking for a partial sale, and so that we could basically be tied to a big company. And one of the first ones that came along was OpenText, and I went down and had a meeting with their chairman and basically walked out of there, and they made us an offer. And the offer was, they asked us what we wanted, we told them, they said okay. I really wish we had asked for more, but
I know.
It was one of those,
I know.
Yeah, the negotiation was like, wow,
shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Too easy.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I know. Yeah,
but it was good. And I mean, one of the things that we had done, identifying that they were a potential acquisition for us. OpenText is doing lots of acquisitions, is we built integration to their technology. So when they said, okay, how hard is it to connect our technology to yours? We said, well, it's not, it's done. And so that was one of the closing things. We closed that transaction from the time they called us and said, we'll take it, until we signed the paperwork and 90% of the money was transferred to the partner's bank account, was 30 days. Fastest acquisition in OpenText's history. Yeah. And it really had to do with, I kind of give a lot of credit back to Jason Steimers, my business partner, because he was phenomenal in operations and organization, and he literally had everything. I remember they came in and they handed us a list of stuff that they wanted us to do, and Jason handed them a thumb drive and said the other 4 documents will be in your desk tomorrow. And literally that's the way it was. Cool. So really, really smart guy for sure.
The next question, Dave, the acquisition, how did it look? Did that pretty well answer that question for you? Or did you want to expand on that?
So that question is sort of born from, you have this amazing entrepreneurial journey, right? And at the end of that, like a lot of entrepreneurs look at acquisition as sort of the end goal, right? And I think there's always this idea of, okay, I'm going to buy a house in the Caribbean and just hang out and drink Corona for the rest of my life, right? And so what does acquisition really look like? Are you walking away into the sunset, or are you hanging out and helping with transition? Are you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we sold, it was 3 partners. So David had already left the firm. We'd bought David out a little bit, a year and a half earlier. So basically there was 3 of us, and it's a great question because all 3 of us did totally different things. So Jay basically received the payout, and I think 3 months he was out of there. He transitioned the accounting side, and Jay basically took a year off, and really just kind of soul searched, I think, and really found what it is. He's now opened up a new successful company, and he's here operating, and he's doing really, really well. But he definitely took some time. I didn't stop. I phased right into being. They basically offered me the position of business. Start that over again. They offered me the position basically of executive vice president or business unit owner. And so basically I was responsible for the Operitel division, and it worked exactly like I was running it myself. I didn't have to stress obviously on the cash flow side of things as much. Cash flow became less of a problem. Then it was all about P&L. I didn't have to worry about collecting the money. Once the invoice is sent out, my business unit got recognition, and it was up to OpenText to figure out how to collect the money. And I didn't have to worry about the $600 and some odd $1,000 a month in payroll that we used to sweat about every single day, because basically it got paid whether the money came in or not. But for the most part, it was just like running the same division. So I stayed there, and Carlos really headed up all of our tech and started getting immersed into the rest of the of the organization. So we did different things, but it's different. To your point, it was very different when somebody else suddenly owns your owns your organization. I mean, it was an interesting transition. I sort of just put it aside and kept driving the business unit, but we all had different perspectives. And eventually, I left. Carlos and I both left at the same time. The organization took a different direction than what we necessarily liked, and unlike when you're an entrepreneur and you basically just got to stick it out, we could leave. And so we set the organization up so that it continue on, and it's still a business unit today. And Carlos and I left. Carlos went off and did some consulting, and I basically bounced around and, you know, bought a couple local companies here and just kind of spent sort of a year figuring that out, and then decided I would get into the political side, and really that kind of spawned out of, I was on the board for the innovation cluster, which was called GPIC back then, as well as
that's on the list here.
yeah, Peterborough Economic Development. I was on their board as well, and so I did the strategic plan with a group as a board member. I was the board chair for the strategic plan, and basically put that together in 2014, and really identified a lot of the gaps and weaknesses we had in our community, and that prompted me to really decide to run and kind of put my hat in the race. I felt we needed somebody who had a fiscal background, understood the community, you know, really loved this community.
Was born in the community.
And wants to drive jobs. Yeah, I mean, it's all about driving jobs. And for me, you know, again, Operitel was a job builder, job creator. And, you know, and we had other spin-off companies as well that came out of those days. But it was all about how do we put our local area in the right light. And in many ways, it's just telling your story, as you and I were talking about before we started. I mean, how do we get the message out there? How do we market the region? And and I think Peterborough needs
a fantastic area. I don't. Yeah, you think
sure.
More people will be taking serious look at it. Yeah,
I agree, and I felt that Peterborough needed a representative that represented Peterborough and Ottawa, not the other way around. And it really wants to drive what this community can do and tell the rest of the world. So that's why I decided. And so my next move from there was into to winning a nomination. And I know we'll talk about that in another show, but basically going from a nomination into the process for what it takes to be.
Thank you. You just filled in a blank for me because I was going to ask you back a bit closer to the election and maybe discuss. We will discuss
Absolutely.
Some issues then.